Hey, it's Mr. Surface. I'm so sorry I cannot be there for open house tonight, but I wanted to still make a little something because I appreciate everyone who came out or who's watching this video. You're the very best, especially since it's a Thursday night. People have things going on. There's siblings, there's dinners, there's all that and the other. So you guys coming out means a lot. So I just wanted to let you know that and to apologize. I just didn't want to bring any sickness into the school. So I'm Mr. Surface. I teach seventh and eighth grade English. I love it. And I'm going to try and just give you a teensy little bit of background. That way, you know, kind of where I'm coming from, where I've come from, and where your student and I are going this year. So just so you know, I was able to pass elementary school. There it is, right over there. Am I looking? Oh no, right over there. That is Bart Coleraine Elementary. That's in the Solanco School District. That's Southern. That stands for Southern Lancaster County. That's where I'm from. That's why I sound the way I do. I grew up with more cows than people. Is one way to think of that area. Then I made it through middle school too, if you can believe it. There's Smith Middle School right there, and then right on to high school, Solanco High School right here. Um, what a place. Then I went on to college for undergraduate. I went to Cabrini College, now Cabrini University. And then for graduate school, I went to the University of Pennsylvania. And now I'm back with some of my colleagues at Cabrini getting an extra certificate in ELL administration. Then on the bottom here, I have my professional experience. So it starts here teaching high school, coaching track and cross country here in North Harford County, about 40 minutes north of Baltimore. I also taught students out of Harrisburg, Chester, and Philadelphia here at Messiah's campus, and then the following year at Millersville, and then the following year at Swarthmore, and then the following 2 years at Bryn Mawr. With a Project Forward Leap. If you've ever heard of Jeffrey Canada and his Harlem Zone project, it was an idea very much like that applied to this area. So enough about me. When you go to talk with your students, since everybody has a computer, everything is going to be housed and made as clear as crystal on their Schoology page. So if they go to their Schoology page, they're going to find what I'm about to show you. Okay, and then we'll talk about this little script to the right. So if you go to Schoology, your student has me either Core 1, Core 2, or Core 3. Not all will show up for your student. It'll just be English language arts for your student. You won't see all this other nonsense, right? So let's just pretend for a moment that you're in Core 1. And if you're in the homeroom right now, that's definitely it. That's what we're looking at, right? You'll see Mr. Surface in a pretend classroom with his pretend feet with no shoes. Come on, Bitmoji. I happen to be out today. That's why this video exists in the first place. But usually you won't see this folder here, or it'll be collapsed into past work quarter 1, right? So there'll always be this week and the past. I try to keep things as simple and elegant as possible. So let's just say there were no sickness in the world. Hooray. And you would see this week's work. And you could click on that and you would see right away, oh, there's a novella we're reading as a class. You could click that open and it would pop open. You could see, oh, what are you learning about? What are you reading it? What's this book about? And then I have the same type of homework every single week, except for 4 different times during the year. All right. Those 4 times are Thanksgiving. I just let people concentrate on the turkey. Winter break. I let people concentrate on their various winter holidays. Um, the week before spring break, Easter time, and then finally around PSSAs because I don't want to exhaust your learner, your scholar. But it's worth taking one quick moment to show what should be happening every single week at home, because the homework is always something that I want to happen at home, and I want it to be something that involves conversation and memorization. There should be very little writing involved, if any, every single week except for their name, right? So here's what week 3 looks like. And then they just click on this homework week 3, and past homework assignments are in, of course, past work, right? And then here you have what your student should be filling out with you, uh, or a relative or a sibling. They should be having a conversation and recording it. So in order to record it, they use Vocaroo. We practice it almost every day in my room, but just in case, there's a how-to video. If you want to see what it looks like to complete one of these homework forms, I've got the first week example right there. Oh, there's my face in there, double surface, right? Then there's usually something that relates to class, just so you guys have a notional idea as to what's going on, what the content is. And there's a lot more content for seventh graders, especially this year. Eighth graders too, of course, but seventh graders, each unit really focuses on a very specific historical period. So there's just like so many details to learn every week, which is good, but is challenging. There will always be words to memorize. I usually put the parts that they were supposed to memorize for this week in red and the parts for weeks past in black. And as we go, students aren't allowed to forget those words either. So I keep recycling through all the words. But this is week three's Latin roots that they need to memorize. And then just because expectations and routines are so important, especially these first 2 months of school, I usually try to say, all right, here's something that we've been doing in class a lot. And I'm starting with these first 2 months just by reminding students to talk about the do now. As soon as you come into class, you don't even need to ask. The same sort of thing will always be up, and it's copying down a quote. This is from the great book Tristan Strong. I'm halfway through with my own kids in my house right now. It's a good one. Can't recommend it highly enough. It's great. So that's what every single week is going to look like on Schoology for your student. These 3 sentences would be good to ask your student every day or at least once a week. All right. So if you ever want to find out how your student is doing in my class, you can say, please show me Mr. Surface's Schoology page. Please click this week's work. And then the student should be able to talk about what they're looking at. Number 2, I know you have homework to talk with me about and memorize before the end of this week. May I see it? Right? Just kind of keep plugging away at it. And then finally, what happened in your independent reading book today? There's a real initiative kind of across the country, but definitely here in our school, which is to be doing reading, to be building up those mental muscles. So when it comes to test time or it comes to writing time, that they've got that mental stamina, they've got that strength to be able to read something long and complicated and talk about it and keep it in their head. But you got to practice, of course. All right. So let me show you an example of what some of those texts look like. This is all the things that you're going to see are from the seventh grade reading, but it's all set up very similarly. They're all set up beautifully by me. This is framing module 1 for my seventh grade students, which is all about identity and society in the Middle Ages. Funny enough, the eighth grade curriculum is about growing up and identity. So, identity is a poem that the students read first to introduce them to the word identity and the concept of identity. And what I have students do is I turn it into a word cloud. The more something is mentioned in a word cloud, the bigger the word, and the less it's mentioned, the smaller the word. So, this was a poem where there's a metaphor about being a weed or a flower, and the speaker in the poem would rather be a tall weed than a delicate flower. That's how they want their identity to be: tough, flexible, hardy, right? So how does society influence identity and experience? We contrasted weeds versus flowers in that poem. And then I always have a little framing TDA, and that's one of those annoying acronyms in life: text dependent analysis. In other words, if you want to answer this question fully, you got to depend on the text as well as your own analysis. And then I have the students find 2 keywords. Analyze would be one here, and the contrast between the flower and the weed. And this is something that they'll see in every single reading they do, just to help frame and get the right ideas and key ideas all set up before they get into the poem. And then when we do get into the poem, we annotate. And I'll show you what that looks like. So, identity and the society of the Middle Ages. So we had a poem. Then your students looked at a nonfiction text, right? And they enjoy the pictures. And again, we have that essential question at the top: how does society influence identity experience? Well, I'd say, well, look for anything that you see about identity. Look for anything you see about society. Look for anything you see about experience, and then highlight it down here. All right. So you see, oh, peasants. I wonder if they had a different experience than, let's say, members of the church, the clergy, people. Oh, that makes me think about society. Oh, the Middle Ages. Yeah. I bet society was different then than it is now, right? So they'll always see the word cloud and they'll always see the TDA. How does the structure of this article help the author to frame their main ideas, right? And they might go, oh, well, main ideas seems important to me and structure seems important to me. And then we would proceed to read, and the text would look like this. History is the record of past events and times. The three general historic eras include ancient history, the Middle Ages, and modern history. What distinguishes the eras, and what are the characteristics of each? Well, if your students never heard of um, the three general historic eras, they might put a question mark next to it, because question marks signify, what do you have questions about, right? Questions are the way that we get at new information and start to understand it on our own terms. Some people call that Socratic questioning, right? Where it's a series of questioning your classmates or your teacher to find out more information and to fill in your own gaps that you know most intimately. We also look for connections on the page. Well, I bet the Middle Ages and castles have something to do with each other. So I'm going to put a little uh, magnifying glass and connect that to the Middle Ages here in the text. Oftentimes, I'll try to join pictures and text or two different texts, and students will find the connections therein. They also need to find what they think is an important idea. Now, you see on the notes here that help the skill that guides our reading, text features versus text structures. And we would look at the sequence in the writing or the main idea in details. And then finally, what connects today's learning target? The prompt is always going to be aligned with the target. So say, how does the structure? Oh, well, I saw a structure right here. And then boom, a little check mark forms at the bottom for your student. They'll see this kind of structure every day, every day. And they're little video exemplars, and I'll show you that soon. And then they start in with the nonfiction text, and they do the same thing. They can ask questions, they can find important ideas, they can find the learning target, they can find connections in the text or between the pictures in the text, right? They can do all those things every day. So very different than our school growing up. Here's a novella your students just finished. Just finished the day I was absent. They read the last 4 pages of it, so I missed the end, but they read the Castle Diary, and just like always, there's a little word cloud built from the text of the Castle Diary. There's a guiding prompt, and then there's the text itself, which is like a diary, and it includes illustrations and stuff like that, and links to online versions of the book. I'm really going to strand your student with just the text. There's almost always going to be a guiding video or something like that. So there's an emphasis. You can see it in homework, but there's another. I want to re-emphasize it in. Sorry, my kid trying to get in the room, doing something, bud. There's an emphasis on conversation. Middle school students are very tentative when it comes to speaking and showing out loud what they understand in the moment. They would rather kind of keep to themselves or talk about something that they prefer, right? The video game Fork Nights or Pac-Man or whatever it is they're playing these days, right? So if you ever want to find out how your student is doing in my class, you can always ask them this question every day. What feedback did Mr. Surface give you today? Right? And the feedback should be academic. And if it was behavioral, then that's something to reach out and talk with Mr. Surface about, because your student deserves to enjoy academic feedback every day. And if they're not getting that, then they're not learning the way they ought to be with the rigor they ought to be. So that's a great question to ask a student in any grade every day. Also, what did you talk about with your group today? Right? And if they say, oh, my group didn't want to talk, well, it's still September. But if they're still saying that in October, you want to let me know. And I can get them to a group that's more talkative, or I can get them to talk more. But that's something we really want to emphasize this year is conversation, small group work, and talking about what they're learning. You can't learn something unless you talk about it. That's true for all types of learners. All right. Uh, Last but definitely not least, as promised, I 100% provide a ton of video and audio support to your student. They deserve it, so I make it. I always joke with them to like and subscribe, uh, and I'm not joking when I say to you, it is worth subscribing to my page. I can't say that everything that I put up there is the most exciting thing in the world, but it's always going to coincide with what happens that week, if not that very day. So you can see that they've been looking at some supplemental novellas to compensate for me not being there. I worked hard on them. You can see some of them are longer than others, right? 5 minutes, an hour, half hour, right? There's all sorts of stuff on there. The videos go on and on. I have 58 subscribers. My goal is to get to a minimum of 2 million within the next decade. Um, and you can just see, look at all this materials. There's so much that can guide your students in what they're trying to learn, what's going on in Mr. Services class. Check the video. Check the video. So make sure you just type in Matthew Surface and his handsome face is right there, and it'll show up. So that's the one you want to get. All right. That concludes my presentation. I want to thank you so much for coming out. I want to thank you for putting up with my long winded self. I'm sorry I'm not there to field your questions, but of course, you can always reach out via talking points or call the school. I've been working there since 2007 and I love my job. I'm not going anywhere. So please, please know that I care about this building, this community, and your student, and I want them to learn this year. So whatever it needs to happen this year to make that happen, let's do it together. All right. Please, please have a great rest of open house. And thank you so much for your attention and time.